Is show, don't tell really such an absolute rule? Hey guys, I'm Marlene and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about the infamous show, don't tell advice that gets thrown around quite a lot. So, first things first, forget the always show rule. That's right, I'm telling you to forget the show, don't tell rule because it's way too absolute. The situation is much more nuanced than that, and I'm going to be explaining what I think the real rule should be. The problem with the always show rule is that it gets interpreted as you should never tell anything in your book. But some stories need telling sometimes. So let's get into when you should show and when you should tell. Now let's get a grasp on what showing means and what telling means first. Now showing means that you relay what is happening to the reader as it is happening. There is no third voice stepping in to tell the reader what is happening, to explain things to the reader. They experience it through physical stimuli that the characters are experiencing, the actions of the characters. So rather than saying she is sad, you have tears running down her face or her body racking with sobs. You are showing the readers what is happening rather than telling them this is what happened. So this should be the primary way of storytelling in your book, since it's very good at immersing the reader into the story and making them feel like they are there. Telling is when you simply give readers information in a straightforward way. This means that the reader isn't as involved, they are passive receivers of information. But that doesn't mean that it's bad. There are some situations where you want readers to know something, but you don't want to spend a lot of time on it, like scene transitions. You don't have to describe every single flower petal that the character is seeing if it's not something that is very important at that moment. You can say, she walked through a forest, telling the reader what is happening. Now, this should only be used when it is necessary, but it doesn't have to be boring. Think about fairy tales. Fairy tales essentially tell you the story, but they're not boring. Think about Lemony Snicket. That is definitely not a boring story, and yet it's mostly in the form of telling. So you can use your unique voice, all the weapons in your writing arsenal to make that telling piece as exciting and interesting as possible. So what's clear from this is that telling is not monotonous exposition. It is strategic disclosure coupled with good voice. So now let's get into when you should tell rather than show. Telling, like I said, is a good way to introduce scene transitions. It's also a good way to introduce information that is necessary for the character to know, but that you don't want to spend a lot of time on, or that it isn't necessary for the reader to be completely immersed in it at that moment. And this could be backstory, but you have to be really careful. And this is the big thing with telling. People who tell you that you should never tell believe that no one can do telling right. But there is a good way to do telling. You just have to be really careful not to make it an exposition dump, to just dump information on the reader. It still has to be written well and done in a unique way. You still have to keep your voice while you are telling. So if you have something that happens that is just a transition from your one event to the next, you're welcome to tell that. Just make sure that it's still interesting to read. Then, unfortunately, there are situations where you absolutely have to show the reader what is happening and not tell. These are things like fight scenes. You shouldn't tell your fight scenes. It's such a letdown when you read a book and then the writer doesn't go into the fight scene. They just tell you that it happened. You should show your readers what is happening in the fight scene as it happens. Now, I don't mean tell them every single move, but they should be immersed in what is happening with the character. Now, if you're writing a more risque genre, more adult books, or something like erotica, you should not tell your love scenes. Of course, if you're writing a teen contemporary romance, you're welcome to just tell the reader that these two people slept together. It really depends on your genre and the audience that you are writing for, but don't tell if this is a genre where people will expect more in-depth, immersive love scenes. And then please never tell your climax. This is the height of the conflict in your book. This is the big battle, the crescendo of everything you've been working towards. Don't tell this. Show the reader everything that is happening as it is happening. Make them feel the way the character is feeling. So yeah, that is how I would rephrase show and tell. It's not an absolute rule. Each has its place and can be useful. You just have to figure out when what is more appropriate. Should I show the scene? Should I rather tell it? And make sure that you put your unique voice into your tell scenes. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want writing advice videos every single Friday, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that little bell. As always, you can find me on my website, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. All the links are listed below, and I will see you guys in next week's video. Bye!